Have you ever laid down at night with a tired body but a mind that refuses to rest? Thoughts looping, worries replaying, questions with no clear answers. What if the peace you are searching for is not found in solving every problem, but in learning how to pray through them? Today on Prayer Decode, we are stepping into a gentle and honest conversation about breaking anxiety through prayer and discovering how faith can calm what feels overwhelming inside. If you are looking for quiet moments of encouragement, real conversations about faith, and prayers that meet you in everyday life, I invite you to subscribe to Prayer Decode and journey with us as we learn to trust God more deeply one day at a time. There is a kind of anxiety that does not announce itself loudly. It shows up quietly. It sits in your chest while you are trying to work. It follows you into conversations. It waits for you at night when the house finally gets quiet. And sometimes, you cannot even explain why you feel unsettled. Nothing dramatic happened. Nothing obvious is wrong. Yet your mind keeps running ahead, imagining problems, replaying conversations, predicting outcomes that have not even occurred. If you have felt that before, you are not alone. Anxiety is one of the most common emotional battles people carry, especially in seasons filled with responsibility, uncertainty, and pressure. Many adults between 30 and 50 are juggling careers, relationships, finances, health concerns, family expectations, and future questions all at once. That is a heavy load for any heart. But today, I want to talk about something simple and deeply powerful: prayer as a pathway out of anxiety. Not prayer as a ritual, not prayer as perfect words, but prayer as honest connection. Because anxiety thrives in isolation, but prayer creates relationship. And something begins to shift when you stop carrying your thoughts alone. One of the reasons anxiety feels overwhelming is because it creates the illusion that everything depends on you. Your decisions, your foresight, your preparation, your ability to anticipate problems. Your mind becomes a control center trying to manage life. But prayer gently interrupts that illusion. Prayer says, I am not alone in this moment. Prayer says, I do not have to hold every outcome myself. Prayer says, there is someone bigger than my thoughts involved in my story. And that realization alone can soften anxiety's grip. Yet many people struggle with prayer during anxious seasons because they believe they must pray correctly. They search for the right structure, the right tone, the right length. But anxiety is rarely eased by performance. It is eased by honesty. Some of the most meaningful prayers are simple sentences whispered in real time. God, I feel overwhelmed. God, my mind will not slow down. God, I am afraid of what might happen. There is no need to impress God with polished language. He already knows the thoughts you are trying to manage. Prayer becomes powerful when it becomes real. Think about how you talk to a close friend when you are anxious. You do not organize a speech. You speak from where you are. Prayer can be that same conversation. And when you begin approaching prayer this way, anxiety no longer becomes a barrier to prayer. It becomes the doorway into it. Another important truth is that anxiety often lives in the future. It imagines scenarios that have not happened. It rehearses conversations that may never occur. It predicts outcomes without complete information. Your body responds as if these imagined events are real. Prayer, however, pulls you back into the present. It anchors you in this moment. When you pray, you are not solving tomorrow. You are acknowledging today. You are breathing here. You are connecting now. The grounding effect is deeply calming. So one practical way to break anxiety through prayer is to pair prayer with awareness of the present moment. You might sit quietly and notice your breathing while you pray. You might feel your feet on the floor while speaking softly to God. You might place a hand over your heart and simply acknowledge what you feel. This is not complicated spirituality. It is embodied prayer. It reminds your nervous system that you are safe enough to pause. And sometimes anxiety loosens not because circumstances change instantly, but because your internal sense of safety increases. Prayer nurtures that safety. Another aspect of anxiety is the constant need for certainty. The mind searches for guarantees. It wants assurance that everything will work out according to expectation. But life rarely offers certainty. Prayer does not always provide immediate answers, but it provides something more sustainable. Trust. Trust does not mean you understand everything. It means you are willing to move forward without total clarity. And that is incredibly freeing, because if peace depended on certainty, peace would be rare. But if peace can coexist with uncertainty, peace becomes accessible. Prayer cultivates that coexistence. You begin saying, I do not know how this will unfold, but I trust that I am not navigating it alone. That shift from certainty to trust is one of the most powerful ways prayer breaks anxiety. Let us pause together for a moment. If you feel comfortable, take a slow breath. Quietly say within yourself, God, I bring you what is weighing on me right now. Do not analyze it. Just name it internally. A decision, a relationship, a financial concern, a health worry, a vague sense of pressure. Now gently say, I release my need to control every outcome. Sit with that for a moment. You may not feel immediate relief, but even small moments of release accumulate. Anxiety weakens each time you practice letting go. Another important element of prayer during anxiety is repetition. Not repetition as empty words, but repetition as reassurance. Just as anxious thoughts repeat themselves, calming truths can repeat themselves too. You might quietly pray throughout your day, God, stay with me in this meeting. God, help me respond calmly. God, hold my thoughts steady. God, give me wisdom for this conversation. These micro-prayers create a continuous thread of connection. And that connection gradually changes your internal atmosphere. Instead of anxiety being the loudest voice, prayer becomes a steady presence underneath it. Over time, you may notice something subtle. Your reactions soften, your breathing deepens. Your thoughts slow down faster after spiraling, your perspective widens. Prayer does not remove all anxious moments, but it changes how alone you feel within them. And loneliness amplifies anxiety more than difficulty itself. So prayer is not just about asking for solutions. It is about experiencing companionship with God in real time. There is also something deeply healing about surrender within prayer. Anxiety often clings tightly to imagined scenarios. Surrender loosens that grip. Surrender does not mean you stop caring. It means you stop carrying. You still act responsibly. You still plan wisely. But you release the emotional burden of ultimate control. That emotional release is what many people describe as peace. Not the absence of problems, but the absence of constant internal pressure. And peace grows where surrender is practiced repeatedly. Right now, imagine placing your worries into open hands rather than clenched fists. Notice the difference in that image. Open hands can still hold things, but they are not straining. That is the posture prayer invites. As we move toward the close of this message, I want to speak to anyone who feels discouraged because anxiety keeps returning even after prayer. Do not interpret recurrence as failure. Anxiety is part of the human experience. Prayer is not a switch that permanently removes it. Prayer is a relationship that continually meets it. Each time you pray, you are strengthening pathways of trust, calm, and connection. Growth is gradual. And every moment, you choose prayer over rumination as meaningful progress, so be gentle with yourself. Celebrate small shifts. A calmer evening, a quicker recovery from spiraling thoughts, a moment of unexpected peace. These are signs that something is changing within you. Before we finish, let me leave you with a simple lesson to carry forward. The lesson is this: anxiety loses power when it is shared with God. Not because problems instantly disappear, but because you no longer face them alone. Prayer transforms anxiety from a private burden into a shared conversation. And within that conversation, peace slowly grows. So when anxious thoughts arrive tonight, tomorrow, or next week, remember you do not have to wait for perfect conditions to pray. You can pray in the middle of racing thoughts. You can pray while driving. You can pray while cooking. You can pray while lying awake at night. Prayer is accessible anywhere anxiety appears. And each prayer, no matter how brief, is a step toward calm. You may still feel the waves, but you are no longer drowning in them. You are accompanied within them. So take a breath, speak honestly, Release gently, and trust that even in anxious moments, you are being held, heard, and guided. And that quiet awareness can begin breaking anxiety, one prayer at a time. As we continue sitting with this idea of breaking anxiety through prayer, there is another layer that often goes unnoticed. Anxiety does not only come from external situations. Sometimes it comes from internal narratives that have been repeating for years. Thoughts like, I should have handled that better. I'm behind in life. What if I disappoint people? What if I... These thoughts can feel factual even when they are simply familiar. And familiarity can be powerful. Prayer creates space to question those narratives gently. Not through harsh self-criticism, but through compassionate awareness in God's presence. When you pray, you are not only speaking outward, you are also listening inward. You begin noticing which thoughts align with peace and which ones intensify pressure. That awareness alone is transformative. Because once you recognize that some anxious thoughts are patterns rather than truths, their authority begins to weaken. You might find yourself praying something like, God, help me see myself the way you see me. Help me recognize which thoughts are fear speaking rather than reality. That kind of prayer invites perspective. And perspective often softens anxiety more effectively than problem solving. Another important aspect is how anxiety affects the body. Many people try to address anxiety only through thinking, but anxiety is also physical. Tight shoulders, shallow breathing, restlessness, fatigue. Prayer can become a bridge between your spiritual life and your physical experience. For example, you might combine prayer with slow breathing. As you inhale, you silently say, God, you are here. As you exhale, you say, I release this tension. This is simple but relating. It reminds your body that prayer is not abstract. It is experiential. Moments like these teach your nervous system that calm is accessible even when uncertainty remains. And over time, you're bodying prayer with safe. That association is powerful because anxiety often conditions the opposite response. Another dimension worth exploring is gratitude within anxious seasons. Gratitude does not deny difficulty, but it widens attention. Anxiety narrows focus onto potential threats. Gratitude expands focus toward present resources. During prayer, you might gently name 3 things you are thankful for, even small ones. A supportive conversation, a quiet cup of coffee, a moment of laughter, the strength to get through a hard day. Gratitude does not erase anxiety, but it balances the emotional landscape. It reminds your heart that your story contains more than stress. And when gratitude is woven into prayer, hope often feels more reachable. Let us pause again for a brief moment. Take a slow breath. Quietly thank God for one thing from today, no matter how ordinary. Notice how gratitude shifts your internal tone, even slightly. Small shifts matter. They accumulate into emotional resilience. Something else that often changes through prayer is how you interpret uncertainty itself. At first, uncertainty feels threatening because it represents lack of control. But through consistent prayer, uncertainty can gradually become a space of possibility rather than danger. You begin thinking, I do not know what will happen, but something good could unfold. I cannot see the path, but that does not mean there is no path. Prayer nurtures that openness. And openness reduces the rigidity anxiety thrives on. Instead of demanding immediate clarity, you develop tolerance for unfolding. This does not happen overnight. It grows through repeated encounters with God's steadiness. Each time you pray during anxiety and experience even a small sense of calm, your trust reservoir deepens. Eventually, you may notice that anxiety still visits, but it does not dominate the way it once did. You recover faster, you spiral less deeply, you reach for prayer sooner, you believe peace is possible again. That is growth. Quiet, meaningful growth. Before we close this continuation, consider one more gentle practice to carry with you. End your day with a releasing prayer. Not a long prayer. Just a moment where you mentally review the day and hand it back to God. The conversations that went well. The moments that felt awkward, the tasks unfinished, the worries still lingering. Simply say, God, I give you this day. Hold what I cannot fix tonight. This practice protects your rest. It reminds you that sleep is not abandonment of responsibility. It is trust that God continues working while you rest. and that trust can be profoundly calming. So as this message settles, hold on to this truth. Breaking anxiety through prayer is not about eliminating every anxious thought. It is about creating a rhythm of returning to God, returning to honesty, returning to surrender, returning to peace. Each return strengthens your ability to live with openness rather than fear, and over time those returns form our pathway. A pathway where anxiety may still walk beside you at times, but it no longer leads you. Prayer does. And that quiet leadership of prayer can gently, faithfully reshape your inner world. As we come to the end of this video, remember that anxiety may visit your thoughts, but it does not have to define your direction. Every time you pause to pray, you are choosing connection over isolation, trust over control, and peace over pressure. Tonight, tomorrow, and in the moments when your mind feels crowded again, return to that simple practice of honest prayer. You do not need perfect words, only an open heart. Thank you for spending this time with Prayer Decode. May you step away from this moment feeling lighter, calmer, and reassured that even in anxious seasons, you are never walking alone.